Mahashi's Global Family Chat. News of rising invincibility around the world. This is the news everyone needs to understand how the trends of time are changing towards peace and prosperity. Mahashi's Vedic technologies, transcendental meditation and its advanced program Yogic Flying are being implemented globally. Just the square root of 1% of the population practicing yogic flying together in a group is enough to raise the levels of harmony and coherence in the collective consciousness for the whole population. Enjoy the news of enlightenment dawning for every individual, invincibility for every nation, and peace for our dear world. Jai Gurudev. Welcome to Mahashi's Global Family Chat on the 12th of September 2016. Today, it is a very great joy to welcome back Dr. Hans Egon Kolsdorf, who has his PhD in mathematics and who is leading, together with his wife, the group of yogic flyers that is now building up in Oebisfelde in Germany. And I think many of us enjoyed the talk a few months ago by Dr. Kolsdorf on mathematics and Brahm. And today, Dr. Kolsdorf is going to go more deeply into this subject, and he'll be presenting today the constitution of the universe. This will be the first of a three-part investigation. It comes from 1974, where he was in the group with Mahashi discussing mathematics, and he presented the initial ideas, and Mahashi liked them. And since that time, he has, of course, been thinking about it a lot more. And so the three presentations which will be coming up will be Constitution of the Universe Part 1, and then he will go into the 7 states of consciousness, all in terms of mathematics. And then the third will be the Constitution of the Universe Part 2. So it's a great joy to have Dr. Kolsdorf here, and together with him is Dr. Eckhard Stein, who is a quantum physicist specializing in quantum chromodynamics, and I believe physicists also use a bit of mathematics, so he is going to be asking the difficult questions at the end. So welcome, Dr. Stein. Dr. Kolsdorf, it's a great joy. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swan. And it's also a joy to sit beneath a famous physicist next to me. So there is an Indian proverb saying, if the truth is not creating waves of bliss, then it isn't the truth. No. How many people have experienced waves of bliss with mathematics in school or universities? So I see almost no one. I think we could make a scientific research asking this same question over the world in different school classes, and I guess the answer will be similar. So this could also be seen as an empirical proof of the incompleteness theorem of Kurt Gödel. Now, Kurt Gödel, the famous mathematician, he has proven that the way modern mathematics is performing in mathematics will be forever incomplete. This is his incompleteness theorem. Something is lacking. That means the approach of proof, of inference only, is a one way, and it will be forever incomplete. Now the same every school pupil would also say there is something lacking in the learning of mathematics, and what is lacking is the bliss. Now, the good news is that there is only a short distance between modern mathematics in school and universities and the mathematics of Maharishi, which is the Maharishi Vedic Mathematics, which is really full of bliss. Now suppose someone has a good connection to Saraswati, the Indian goddess of science and also mathematics, and maybe he approaches her and says, "Dear Saraswati, please disclose to me the secrets of mathematics, but only if it can be proven according to modern mathematical logic." And then Saraswati may say, "Are you aware of the theorem of incompleteness of Kurt Gödel?" And he will, of course, say, "Of course, I know it, but what can we do?" Only a complete new mathematics can solve this incompleteness. And Saraswati may say, "Right, so we don't have to wait for a long time for this new, complete new mathematics. Maharishi has brought it to the world. It's his Maharishi Vedic Mathematics." And that is all we are talking about today. Now, what is really new in Maharishi Vedic Mathematics? We can quote the Veda to explain the main differences between modern and Vedic mathematics. According to Nyaya, the first system of Indian philosophy, there must be always 4 means of gaining a valid knowledge, not only one. All the 4 must be applied always, and these are: first, direct experience; second, inference or proof; third, comparison, which means something is compared to something else which is different but similar; and fourth, Shabda. Shabda is here a very important new kind of methodology in mathematics. Shabda means verbal testimony. It means a reference to the Veda or to the master, Vedic master. So, yet now imagine, to modern mathematics employs only proof. And they are proud of it since the days of Euclid, because they found that sensual perception is always not reliable. That's true, but Plato also said there is another way of experiencing mathematical objects, and the same as Maharishi is saying, the mind is able to experience the transcendence, the non-physical, the completely abstract non-physical objects. Now today we are going both ways. We are throwing light from the part of Veda to mathematics, and vice versa. We engage mathematics and showing beautiful results given by Maharishi through mathematics. Mathematics means rigor, preciseness, and Veda means completeness and bliss by direct experience plus proof plus comparison plus Shabda. Now, we are referring today, when we go into details, only to 2 sources from Maharishi. Maharishi has given thousands of lectures of the same, with same or similar topics, but we concentrate only first on his quote, on his definition of of the constitution of the universe, and secondly on his historic lecture about the rising of Brahman consciousness. With these 2 sources from the Veda, from Maharishi, we cover most of the normal stuff taught in schools and in the first 1 year of undergraduate study at universities in mathematics. Now, Maharishi, we heard a series of lectures of Maharishi in Tübingen in Germany, and he said clearly that in the movement, in the history of the movement, there have been some breakthroughs. And these breakthroughs happened every, say, 2-3 years, and they always gave rise to a new discovery of a new state of higher consciousness. Now, when I came back from the SCI course in Future 1972, I discussed the possibility of application of SCI in mathematics, because Maharishi motivated us to apply SCI to every field. So we were discussing among mathematicians in the University of Bonn, and it should be easy to find the being and intelligence, existence, and consciousness in mathematics, because mathematics is the science of infinity. But we didn't succeed. The reason was not that we didn't find infinity in mathematics. The reason was that mathematics is full of infinities, and which one should play the role of being, which one the role of Brahman, we didn't know. So we were just discussing, that was all. But then, at the next breakthrough, when Maharishi came out with Brahman consciousness at the end of 1972, and especially in his historic large lecture on development of Brahman consciousness, on the 17th January 1973, the evening, there he built the bridge between mathematics and his Vedic knowledge, because he explains the development of Brahman, starting from unity consciousness, using the Brahma Sutras. I don't go into detail right now, but at the end of this long inference, long line of logical sequence, he said, at the end, what comes about is a long line. Now, what is the long line? In mathematics, the long line could be called straight line, long line, but also number line, real numbers, and the continuum. And Maharishi calls Brahman wholeness, continuum, and continuous wholeness. So just the vocabulary is already identical. And in this moment, it became for me completely clear how the connection is. So it's like I was looking for a dictionary between mathematics and Vedic science, and the first entry was continuum equals continuum. It's the first entrance, but it's enough to have this entrance. That's all is needed. Everything else is more like a homework. No, we only have to we have to go into details and find out what are the parts of Brahman consciousness and what are the parts of the mathematical continuum. And then we come to the breakpoints, breakthroughs, as Maharishi told it. The 7 states of consciousness are the constituents of Brahman consciousness. And when we go on the mathematical side, then the constituents of the continuum of the number line are just the different number systems. So just buy a book in the library, the construction of the number system, and you have everything about states of consciousness. But today we will focus on, this is a personal level, with human consciousness able to rise to higher states of consciousness up to Brahman consciousness. There's another level, which is a cosmic level, and the question is, what was at the beginning? Now, we know in the beginning there is a word, or a Big Bang. No, mathematics is even before. So Maharishi gave a historic lecture about the genesis of the unmanifest, from point to line. And this is his definition of the constitution of the universe. He says this constitution is the relation between a point and the line, continuum, and the relationship between the continuum and the continuum, the line and the line. Now, this covers huge areas of mathematics and also of his Vedic science. So today we will focus on the first part of this definition. So only today we are looking at the journey, we can say, from point to line. This is a development of Brahman from Atman. Atman the point and Brahman the line. Now, if you plan a journey, say from here to Roma, the eternal city, there are points of interest like Munich, Venezia, Milan, and so on, Roma. And whether you take the train or you go by car, one thing is in common. The points of interest are the same. There is a station in Munich, there is also a highway exit in Munich, and so on. And by chance, that's what I only found out, that Maharishi's points of interest are his breakthroughs, and they correspond exactly one-to-one to the breakpoints in mathematics. And these are different kinds of number systems. So, but today we focus on the cosmic level of how the universe starts, before starting. And after the lecture, she says, of course, this development which she discussed in, say, 1 or 2 hours, it takes place in one instantaneously. It's only for a matter of discussing, of teaching it, to have it taught in a few hours. In mathematics, at my university, it took 6 weeks for this stuff. Now we will compress it in half an hour. Now, at the universities, some professor starts the first lesson about calculus usually. He starts by saying, we do as if we know what the real number, that means the continuum, is. This saves him a lot of time because in his audience there are not only mathematicians, but also physicists. And they need calculus right from the first day in mechanics and kinematics. But mathematicians like to start earlier. So our professor started by saying, we do as if we know what the natural numbers are. The numbers 1, 2, 3, which every child knows from his childhood. But I, like most, the approach, we do as if we know nothing. Or nothingness. So we start from scratch. And so we don't miss any step. And that's what Maharishi also did. Maharishi was talking on the development from Atman to Brahman. So we started with Atman. He started with being. He said, in the beginning there's only being, without a second. Now, in mathematics there's also a beginning. This is set theory. Set theory is complete, it's the beginning of mathematics, and it's also the language of mathematics, because every Cantor, George Cantor, the inventor of set theory, he could show that every single item in mathematics could be explained in terms of a set. So sets play a very important role. And the first set which he defined was the empty set. And of course, this corresponds to nothingness, to shunya, to Atman. There being only one set without any elements, without something second. Now, in the science of being, from the science of being, we know in the beginning there is being, and it feels I am alone. Maybe I become many. And Maharishi raises the question, what is the purpose of this multiplication of the being? It says, maybe it's the joy of creation. Now, I like to dwell a little bit on the term of the set. The set in the mathematical sense. There is a famous definition of George Cantor. It says a set is a collection of well-defined, well-distinguished objects of our thinking or our perception to a whole. That's all. And the empty set is just such a collection of nothing. Like if you say 20 people in the audience, and if it gets too mathematically, they're leaving the room, and at the end, the collection of the audience is an empty set. So, empty set is a very important construct in mathematics. And there's also the axiom system, the formal system. That means mathematicians have found a way to base whole of mathematics on 10 unproven statements, which are called axioms. And the first axiom is there exists the empty set. This was necessary because there is no way for mathematicians to prove that any object whatsoever and any set exists. So they have to postulate it, and this is the first axiom. Now this is a picture showing the three different paths to infinity. On the left you see a mathematician thinking and calculating what is the limit of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on as n goes to infinity. This is the convergence, the concept of a convergence of a sequence. It's not difficult to see that this convergence sequence has much to do with the bubble diagram, which we see on the right. So someone is meditating, you also experiences bubbles of thoughts. Say the third bubble has a diameter of 1, the second maybe of a half, the third 1/4, and so on. Then you also get a sequence, infinite sequence of bubbles, which converge. It means converge to a point which is beyond the sequence. Now the limit of the sequence 1.5 and so on is 0. But 0 is not part of the sequence, it's beyond the sequence. So you see two different ways doing the same, and there is a third one. On the left you have a theory, mathematics, convergence of the sequence. It's a terrible definition, I won't repeat it here, but if you look on the right, on the bubble diagram, it becomes clear what it means, just graphically. And the third way is Maharishi theory about transcendental consciousness, transcendental meditation. He says in 7 places in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, the mind experiences during transcendental meditation finer and finer thoughts until the finest thoughts get until the mind converges upon a point. 7 times. Converges upon a point. Converges upon a point. So it's obvious two different terminologies describing the process of getting to infinity. And on the left you have the theory in mathematics and Maharishi science, and on the right you have the experience. And that's what Nyaya is postulating. Direct experience, inference, proof, comparison, and Shabda. So, and Maharishi often compares mathematics with Vedic science, like we see in the next slide, please. There are 2 parallel lines of commentaries of Veda, one through number system and one through language. So it's tremendous how Maharishi appreciates the value of the number system, or a special part of mathematics. The number system is the central core of mathematics, especially the line, the continuum of Brahman. So Brahman and the number systems, they are by nature directly connected, so to say, because both are parallel lines of commentaries of the Veda. At his book, Maharishi's, please, thank you for the slides, yeah. In this book of Maharishi's Absolute Theory of Defense, Maharishi again explains. He says, today we are fortunate to have two different interpretations of the ultimate reality in different terms and from different angles. One is this Vedic science and one is mathematics. And this book is a textbook of Maharishi Vedic Mathematics. On 176 pages, Maharishi defines his Vedic mathematics. So I'm just referring to this book or these lectures. I'm not doing anything new, I'm just hinting at this fact, how Maharishi appreciates mathematics. Now, if it's so, that's the number system and Maharishi's Vedic science are both commentaries of the Veda, one may ask the question, Maharishi, why didn't teach you us the number system? Why didn't teach you us mathematics? It would be nice to, if there are two commentaries, it would be nice to know both of them. Now, next slide, please. Now, this is a speciality of Maharishi's language. If we just analyze Maharishi's language a little bit, we find out that sometimes he talks about mathematics. Now, this is not mathematics. For example, if he says mathematics is the language of the modern sciences, that's talking about mathematics. It's called meta-mathematics or philosophy of mathematics. But sometimes he uses only mathematical terms, like in his definition of the constitution of the universe. So being the relation between a point and a line and between a line and a line. But most of the time, when he is always when he is talking about higher states of consciousness, he speaks in double meanings. It means he speaks in Vedic terms about Vedic science, and at the same time it's a demonstration of, it's a lecture on mathematics. I just found it out in 1973, and so I can take mathematical books and put them in parallel to his golden books, and the corresponding is just a source of bliss. So if you need some reconciliation with mathematics from school, maybe you haven't had that good experiences, just reading a few lines of Maharishi's Vedic mathematics may help you to reconciliate you with mathematics. Now, to demonstrate this double meaning, I mean, Maharishi, maybe he was very wise to not mention that he is also talking at the same time, giving a mathematical lecture. But this speech is enormous, and just this lecture I'm referring right now is full of mathematics, but no one would ever get the impression that it is like this. But if you know it, you just take his words verbally and just look in dictionaries, mathematical dictionaries, what these terms mean, and you disclose more and more meaning of this lecture. And this famous lecture, historical lectures, is the lecture "The Absolute Broken into Pieces." The Absolute Broken into Pieces from 1973. There he starts from the point. He says, in the beginning there was the absolute only, and then this absolute gets broken into pieces. And he explains how this happens, and he refers to consciousness. He says, consciousness is what is conscious of itself. And in the beginning, if there is being, okay, there's one huge mass of being without any structure, but nothing else, just but consciousness. And in the moment being becomes conscious of itself, there is something different created. Before there was only being. Now you look at being from a distance, and this is the breaking of, Eckhart would say, symmetry. This is the beginning of coming from one point to 2 points. And Maharishi said, I feel criminal saying the absolute gets broken into pieces, but it's how it happens. But it doesn't stop here. As soon as there are two, then there is a huge momentum to fill the gaps to fill the gap. There's a huge gap between one and the second point, and now the task is to fill the gap again, to fill the gap and make it fuller and fuller and fuller and fuller until maybe something else gets created, and that's the story. Now, to explain it to children, and I've learned from my lessons that everything must be explained also, should be also understood by children. So we start the simple way, the easy way. Okay. Now, tell a child that the whole universe starts with nothingness, just being. And say you look at the sky at night, and what you see, a huge universe. And just imagine to concentrate it on one point. So this is the beginning. And then with this breaking of symmetry, yeah, with this.
Put your point higher.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, put it higher.
Yes.
Thank you for the hint. Yes. Yeah. Now this is now comes a symmetry breaking. At this point, this being becomes conscious of itself, and in this moment, immediately 2 points are created, like this. So this is the story. At first this, and then this, and then you ask this child to take a pen as thick as possible and fill in the gaps. Filling in the gaps. For example, you can in between, in halfway, could put a point, then again halfway and halfway. So it may take a minute or so to get all these gaps filled by other points until you get a line. Okay, may take 1 or 2 minutes. And then you give the child another pen with a very thin peak. And they do the same. So you have 1 point and then 2 points. So then it fills. So it fills the gaps. And it takes much, much longer to fill it. And at the end, you give it a pen with a point as a peak. It means infinite small, with a length of 0, a mathematical point pen, and fill it. And it will never succeed. If we can keep on filling, it will never succeed. But we know at the end we want to have a line. We want to have the continuum of Brahman. So Brahman is the end. We know already the goal. Everyone knows what the line is. But now comes the story, the journey from point to line, and this takes some time. And in school, I don't think that it's done thoroughly, but at the university it's usually done. Now, in this historic lecture on the 17th of January 1973, Maharishi equates Brahman with continuum. And continuum mathematics is equated with straight line, number line, and real numbers. And the abbreviation is the double strike letter R. So, and Maharishi also equates Brahman with the Vedic lecture, Sanskrit letter A. So, if we pronounce it the English way, we have A equals A. So, that's the shortest way. And the real numbers in mathematics play a special role. Hermann Weyl, the famous mathematician who was behind Einstein, he defines mathematics as the science of the continuum. So mathematicians know, if we would know what the continuum is, then everything else is just a consequence. But they know, they will never know what the continuum is by proof. And what Maharishi is saying in this regard, as an answer to Kurt Gödel's problem of incompleteness of mathematics, Maharishi says, it is difficult to describe Brahman, the continuum, but it's easy to experience it. So, experiencing mathematical objects, especially starting from the Atman, from transcendental consciousness, up to Brahman consciousness, is a solution to the incompleteness of present mathematics. This experience will give complete mathematics, and since Brahman has 3 qualities like Sat, Chit, Ananda, it means existence, consciousness, and bliss, we automatically will have bliss in mathematics with Maharishi Vedic Mathematics. Now, Brahm is a wholeness. Maharishi doesn't like to talk in terms of parts of this wholeness, because wholeness means wholeness. Parts is not a property of wholeness. Only for teaching purposes, learning purposes, we may divide Brahman into two categories, Nirguna Brahm and Saguna Brahm. Nirguna means the abstract part of Brahman, and Saguna means the concrete creation. So when we want to locate mathematics, we certainly will not find it on the Saguna Brahm part, because it's not subject to change under time and material and so on. So mathematics is certainly found in the Nirguna Brahm part. Now, in this part we have Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means existence. Mathematics cannot prove existence of objects, but if you sit in meditation and experience transcendental consciousness, then you are experiencing, according to Maharishi, the point. So, and then it's no question for you whether this exists or not, because it's yourself, you experience it, that's your proof of existence. And this proof of existence is beyond mathematics. Now, Chit, we will come to it soon, and bliss, of course, comes to mathematics only by this experience, because it says in the Upanishads, the contact with Brahman is infinite bliss. Next slide, please. Now we see the history of which is the theme of today, from point to line. And these are the breakthroughs Maharishi is talking about in terms of states of consciousness, say of the journey from here to Roma. In the beginning there's 1 point and 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. Yeah, it's for many, 5 points, 6 points. That means wherever you reach a new number of points, you then proceed to the next, and then to the next. Now, remember which number you have reached by counting in your childhood. I remember my daughter was once counting until 1,000. So it never ends. But one has only a feeling how it proceeds, and it's a huge success of modern mathematics to use a mind in waking consciousness, means in finite consciousness, to in finite terms, formulas, finite language, to get so much knowledge about infinity. It's really surprising. The only thing which is missing is the experience of it. Okay, this is a story, and these long lines with big gaps, smaller gaps, and no gaps. These are the milestones of mathematical development of the number system. And they have names. Please, the next slide. Now, the basis of all mathematics is set theory. Everything is defined in terms of sets. But then, if you read the book about set theory, say about 50 or 100 pages, it starts to specialize, and this specialization goes into algebra, order theory, and topology. Now, it's interesting, I never heard Maharishi talking about algebra in this context, talking about higher states of consciousness. It doesn't mean that it doesn't talk about algebra, but never, for my opinion, in this context. But he mentions all the important definitions and theorems of order theory and topology and set theory. The main theorem of set theory, the main theorems of linear order theory, and the main properties of the topology of the line, all are found in Maharishi's this one historic lecture as an absolute broken into pieces and then put together. Next slide, please. Now, set theory is normally taught in school and also in undergrad university in the native way or naive way. Native way, it means in the way George Cantor has defined it. So he has a definition of what a set is, and then he starts with the null set, the empty set, and he creates higher and higher collections of sets, huge sets, and at the end he creates a whole universe of sets. But by chance, by accident, when he defined the universe of sets, there arose a contradiction or some contradictions. And if you, mathematicians, they fear contradictions like the devil, the holy water. So tremendous effort has been done to circumvent this contradiction. And this was the birth of axiomatic set theory. It's quite very formal, very formal, very abstract stuff, which is not taught in schools and not in undergraduate mathematical study. I'm sure most of mathematicians, 95%, have never worked with these axioms. But for a meditator, it's a different story. These axioms are full of philosophy. Just let us start with the first one. It says, there exists a set without elements. Okay, that's Atman, being. In the beginning, there was only the being, nothing else. And then there comes the first construction axiom. That means if you have a set, whatever, then you can create a new set which contains just this set as an element. That, for example, if you have the empty set, you can create a new set containing one element. And this element can be the empty set. And then you have a new set. And you can keep on doing this, and so create higher and higher and higher sets, bigger sets. And then is a very important axiom which was very courageous from George Cantor. He said, whenever I formulate a property, I'm sure, it was his intuition, I'm sure that there will be a set having just this property. For example, the property of all natural numbers smaller than 5. It's just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The set of all odd numbers are just the numbers 1, 3, 5, and so on. So he was, and this was a very, very useful concept. And it reminds me of the concept of Maharishi name and form. That means you have a small formula in terms of set theory. Usually it's maximum one line, even half a line long, and it defines all the famous sets which are used in mathematics, the prominent sets. They're also all always defined by a property, and this is just a formula. So you have a formula, but what you get is a huge, infinite large set. Otherwise you can't manage infinity. You can't start when you want to describe the natural numbers. You can't sit and write them all down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Even if you have infinite long paper, you will never end. So you must use language to describe it. And this is the axiom which asserts if we have a formula, there's always a set. This is for me the first example of the name-form relationship which is common in Vedic terms. Please, the next. Now, it's not the time to go into detail for linear order theory. Even it's quite simple. You never learned in school, but it's not difficult. But I just want to mention it. You remember this chart with the point and with big gaps, smaller gaps, and no gaps. And this comes from order theory. Order theory has added something to set theory in order to differentiate these kinds of gaps. So the natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, they are full of big gaps. And the next kind of numbers which you learn in school are the fractions, the rational numbers. And these have smaller gaps, actually infinite small gaps. And at the end, if you have the whole line, then you have no gaps. So the gap theory, which Maharishi liked very much, he asked me to repeat this gap theory several times in this talk in 1974. It comes from linear order theory. It's not difficult, but it's never mentioned in school, I guess. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is a technique of doing it. I won't go to the detail. Next slide, please. So, topology is another and it's the third main structure. It's called mother structure. Algebra, order theory, and topology. The three mother structure has to do a lot of Porosha and Pakiti, the main mother structures. We do it later on. So the terminology which is used in this topology is isolated point. Maharishi mentions absolute broken into pieces. He says, these are created, this is created. What is created are isolated individuals. So he uses the word isolated, which is a fixed term of topology. And then he says you have disconnectedness. In the beginning, when you have only one point, you have connectedness. And this property of connectedness of one point is lost once you have 2 points or 3 points and so on. So this is disconnectedness. The mathematical term is disconnected. It's even totally disconnected. So connectedness is one of the main properties of topology, and it says points are connected, but several points are disconnected. And the concept of convergence of an infinite sequence, like the bubble diagram, it comes from topology. And also completeness. Completeness means with the line, everything is finished. You can't make something bigger within the line than is already constructed. It means if we have constructed the line according to mathematics, it's finished. And that's what Maharishi is saying. Brahman is the highest state of consciousness human being can reach. Now, this is the history of creation. Starts with the empty set. Next, please. Then it gets a name. The name is zero. So zero is just a name. It has nothing to do with addition or multiplication or algebra. It's just in set theory. It just means it's just a name. You could also say shunya, which is a Sanskrit word for zero, nothing, empty, and void. Next slide, please. Now you create the next one. It's give it a name. The name is one, and it is a set which contains one element, and this one element is a previous empty set. So the only material which you need is the empty set plus construction principles. And the construction principle is the axiom. If you take a set consisting of another set, this is also a valid set. Expansion of happiness is the purpose of creation. Next slide, please. So it just continues this way. So what you see only empty sets in different brackets, one after the other. And you can abbreviate it by using the names 0, 1, 2, 3. These are only abbreviations, just names. I am one, maybe I become many. It's the first, applies to the first. And then in the Upanishad it says 1 is in me, 2 is in me, 3 is in me. Upanishad. Next slide, please. Now we can, from the point of set theory, it has no elements. From point of order theory, it's empty chain. From point of topology is connectedness. Next slide, please. And now we have a singleton, a set consisting of one element. Similar. Next, please. So now we have two points. A set consisting of two elements. It's still a finite set from set theory, nothing new. From order theory, it has new properties. It has a minimum set element, the left one point. And it has a maximum element, the right point. And from topology point of view, it's discrete. It's also what Maharishi is saying. Discrete, isolated individuals, Maharishi is saying. So in topology, it means discrete, totally disconnected, only is isolated points. Next slide, please. And so on. It continues like this until something new happens. Next slide, please. Now, here. We have the whole natural numbers, all the natural numbers from 1 to up to infinity. And here you get new properties. From set theory, it's the first infinite set constructed in this way from set theory. It has a name, the cardinality, it means the magnitude of the set. It's called Aleph 0. It's just a name. It's the smallest transfinite cardinality. From order theory, it's still a chain with a minimum, but with no maximum element. There is no maximum element. It is always as one another. Maybe beyond there is one waiting, like the infinite symbol, but it's not part of this set of natural numbers. And from topology, it's still discrete, it's still totally disconnected, and still only isolated points. Next slide, please. Now, the absolute is broken now into so many pieces. Now is the time to fill the gaps. Now, in school, it's not constructed. It takes quite some time, even at the university, to construct this set with no jumps. Jumps means big gaps. And if we have the rational numbers, that means a set of all fractions, then the gaps are infinitely small. There are only points like square root of 2 is missing. So irrational numbers are missing. But it's almost full. And the Upanishads say for this, if you read the Upanishads, they say, if they mention the words smoke, dust, or mist, or fog, then, for my opinion, they refer to this density set, E. It's called, has letter E. And if you continue filling in these gaps, then you come to the real line. Next slide, please. Now, this is a formula of constructing. Then said, just take a calculator and imagine if you take all numbers with a finite number of decimal places, then, which can easily be understood by a calculator, then you get a set which is dense. It means between 2 points is still another one, and between these two is still another one. So it means between 2 points there are infinitely many others, and there are no more jumps as before. We make it short, so please go to the next slide. So what are the properties? From set theory, George Cantor has proven, which was surprising, that the set of fractions, 1/2 and so on, has the same magnitude as the natural numbers, 1, 2, 3. One could think there are more, but he has proven they are 1 to 1, the same magnitude. From order theory, it's proven that there are no jumps, that means no big gaps, that the set is dense, like fog and mist and so on, and that there are gaps, but many gaps there are still. Yeah? From topology, it's still, as before, totally disconnected, but it's also dense, which is a different denseness, a different definition, and it has no more isolated points. These are the properties of the first dense set, normally in school, the rational numbers. Next slide, please. And if you take all decimal numbers, doesn't matter whether they are finite decimal places or infinite many decimal places, like pi and e and square root of 2 and so on. If you take them all together, you get something else. You get the whole line of decimal numbers. You get Brahman consciousness. And from set theory, it was a huge surprise that you don't have the same number of elements, it means the same magnitude, but a completely higher, larger set. This is called uncountable infinite, and it has a new cardinality, it's called C, like a continuum. And this you can read in the Bhagavad Gita, in Mahari's commentary. He says, the infinite science of unity consciousness is of an infinite greater degree than the infinite science of cosmic consciousness. Now, today we are not going too deeply in the consciousness, but it relates to the natural numbers and the real numbers. It's complete. It was a real surprise because until that time one thought there is only one huge mass of infinity. But Cantor has proven, no, there are structures in the infinite. And the real numbers are the first uncountable infinite set which one knows. From order theory, the beautiful properties comes no gaps anymore. And it's order complete. That means complete in the sense of order theory, which means no gaps. And from topology, it's connected. And from point of view of metric topology, it's also complete, and it's called the continuum. And Maharishi at this point says, in the whole history from point to line, from Atman to Brahman, we have in the beginning connectedness, and then disconnectedness. And at the end, at unity consciousness or Brahman consciousness, he says, what you see is connectedness. It also means what you see is connectedness. So identical terms like in topology, order, and set theory sometimes. So this is the story of from point to line. This is the story from Atman to Brahman. And this was the historic lecture of Maharishi from about the absolute broken into pieces and then put together. In the middle of the lecture, he says quite loudly, he said, "It has nothing to do with the relative." Yes, it's mathematics, it has nothing to do with the relative. So from the mathematical point of view, it's easy to follow this lecture double. First, in terms of Maharishi, and secondly, we know from school. And most of you probably have spent more hours in your life with mathematics, these number systems, than with Vedic science. So every country has a huge reservoir of knowledge about mathematics and number theory, and if it's connected to Vedic science, it's advantages from both sides. So Maharishi says Brahm is a straight line. Here we are. Maharishi says, the most I find myself. This is he was saying on the 28th of November 2007. The most I find myself, most interesting level of language is straight line, and the number system. So maybe you think about mathematics again, and maybe you appreciate now how important and also how holy mathematics and the number system is. And it gives you much deeper understanding of Brahman and Brahman consciousness and the other 7 states of consciousness. Next slide, please. Now, the dictionary Veda and mathematics can be very short. It actually needs only the first line. Real numbers equals Brahm, or continuum equals continuum. That's actually the only entry is necessary, because everything else is a homework. It's not difficult, it's clear. No, empty set corresponds to the absolute. The construction of the number system corresponds to broken into pieces and put together. Isolated points corresponds to Maharishi's isolated individuals. Jumps correspond to big gaps. Gaps in sense of order theory, no jumps, corresponds to smallest gaps. No gaps corresponds to continuous wholeness. Order complete means high set of consciousness, and so on and so on. So this is a dictionary which can grow as you work with Vedic mathematics. And as Maharishi said, he who takes care of Vedic mathematics, for him Vedic mathematics takes care of. Manu Smriti 1.8. Mm-hmm. In short, it can be detailed as much as you like, as we like. It was all, the main. This lecture from Maharishi about absolute broken pieces contains any information which is needed for mathematicians to bridge the gulf between mathematics and Veda, and to get advantages from both sides.
Thank you, Dr. Kolsdorf. I think that it would be great to have the comments of Dr. Stein. I think you have shown quite clearly that mathematics is a tool, a language, that can be used to describe natural law, to describe the constitution of the universe. For example, to show that consciousness is all there is, or to show that everything is consciousness. All sets, the universe of sets, are made up of
the
empty set. So this is a beautiful demonstration of mathematics as a language to discuss natural law. I'm sure that Dr. Stein heard much more. Would you like to comment?
Thank you very much for this beautiful lecture on mathematics and consciousness and Vedic mathematics, and especially in this relation to Maharishi's lecture. And first of all, I liked it very much how you described this process of transcending, because everyone who comes for initiation normally explain in abstract terms before what's happening, and then afterwards he makes this experience, and then he said, oh, it's completely different than what you said, but I now understand what you wanted to tell me. Huh? And mathematical formulas are very, very precise, so you just can tell him the sequence of 1 over n or something like this. that there's a convergence, and then happens this transcending because there's something new which is not inside the numbers you had before. And then you are going on with Brahm and the line. But now I have a question for, imagine that I don't know what transcending is. I don't have the experience. And you said that there's this incompleteness theorem of Gödel, who's saying that inside mathematics you can't get a full answer, as I understand. Yeah? So, and what you are saying is that what is missing is the experience. The experience of Brahm, the experience of transcendental consciousness and all of that. But now, could you write this down in such a way that a mathematician would understand that you write, instead of an incompleteness theorem of Gödel, you write down the completeness theorem of Dr. Kolsdorf, and so that every mathematician understands, even without having the experience of transcending? Would this be possible, or is it just a stupid question?
It's interesting. I will think about it, but I'm sure I will not be able, because this theorem can't be disproven. It's a part. It was proven perfectly, but the consequence is this is what mathematicians are saying.
Yeah.
I can show you how they argue. They say only a complete new mathematics will solve this problem, and the new mathematics will consist of 4 means of gaining method knowledge, not only inference, but experience, comparison, and chapter. And each of them plays a vital role in this extended new mathematics. And then it will be complete, as Maharishi says. Brahman is difficult to describe, but easy to experience.
Yeah. Because you see we have the same problem in physics, no?
Tell me.
Maybe it's not formalized and all of that, but if you go, physics is not, we are using mathematics as a tool, no? Just for calculating. And when you come and we are completely focused on the outside world, we don't just ignore consciousness, so to say. We ignore the consciousness of the observer. We just go and analyze the objects. And going deeply in the objects, analyzing, at some point far in the distance, we see the observer himself waving at you. That's an experience of physics, that in the very end the researcher is researching himself. And then you come to a point where you are saying that this objective means of gaining knowledge is not enough, but you have to have some experience. So, but this is never, maybe it's a little bit formalized, but I'm just wondering if you can write down a new term of mathematics which solves this problem of Gödel, because it's completely, it's missing the bliss if you if you analyze something and from the start, when you do the calculation, you know that it's never will be complete. So why at first start at the beginning? No?
Yeah.
So maybe that's my question. So can you write it down in such a way that we know that 50% or even more of students as a mathematical, when they start to study, they drop off, no? They do something else. So if you could create a study so that instead of being with this old mathematics, which has been shown to be incomplete, they go to the next classroom and do this full mathematics.
Yes, in education, this is the main application of this comparison. 53% of students drop out university completely, another 30 drop out mathematics and study something else like art or so on. So, and statistics, federal statistic has shown there are 2 main reasons. One is they're stupid, I mean, especially concerning mathematics, and second, the lack of motivation. So, and for getting higher IQ, TM is there. It has been shown that it increases IQ. This solves this kind of problem, and the motivation. This comes from this lectures from Maharishi, this comparison, because mathematics first they don't know whether the objects exist, and it's not very motivating to study something where you know whether it exists or whether it's such a fancy idea of some people. No? So the motivation will completely change if they know that it has to do something with oneself. As Maharishi says in Upanishads, it says, the knower of Brahm will become Brahm. So the mathematician will become the continuum one day. And it's a tremendous motivation, I guess. I mean, I was one example of these two groups. You may may guess which one. But I dropped my study for 3 years, and I have sworn never to enter any university because of lack of motivation, because I felt there was no use for me in practical life. So why to study it when it has no use? It was nice, but it was no use, was not useful. But then it took Maharishi 5 minutes to convince me to continue, and since this moment on, I experience a lot of bliss with mathematics, and this I want to share, not only with mathematicians, with children, with pupils, with their parents, even grandparents. They will be happy without to reduce the stress created by mathematics, a dry mathematics, as Maharishi is saying, a dry mathematics without any experience of infinity, which they're discussing every day.
I think we spent already quite some time, but now let's put it more not so nice way. Because we know that this incompleteness is there in every study. It's there in physics, it's there in biology, it's there everywhere. That people are not satisfied because they study all the outside thing and they don't know how does it relate to myself. But I have the feeling, and I could do some similar things. I could look into physics, look at Sagun Brahm and Nirgun Brahm and all of that, and find very, very nice relationships to physics. So what is the speciality of mathematics different to all these other things? Just because I could tell you something about Vedic physics, Vedic...
yes, but there's a completely different, something different with mathematics, because mathematics is known to be, one is wondering about the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics in the natural sciences. And it means one is wondering why just today mathematics is applied more and more in more and more sciences. My poor daughters, they all studied economy, and they had to do a lot of mathematics, which was never before, 10 or 20 years before. And so it's a mathematization of sciences at the moment. There must be a reason, because it only happens to mathematics. One wouldn't say biology is the basis of all sciences, or language of all science. One wouldn't say this, but this applies to mathematics. Maharishi says very clearly, we are fortunate today to have two different interpretations of the ultimate reality, with from two different angles and two different turns, and he mentions only Vedic science and mathematics. So it's a special role. There's a natural...
No, what he's saying there's a number system which is rigid, and the other thing is language system. So, and
which is flowing.
Both, the one is flowing and the other one is rigid.
No, it's also flowing. I mean, wait on to the second part, to the third part about constitution of the universe, relation between a line and a line. Then, because that's the next step towards creation. I mean, there are many steps towards creation. I was always listening in the last 44 years, when comes the next. And with Rishi Devata and Chandas, in the 90s, there was a tremendous expansion of this only from point to line. And this goes in the direction of creating. But then I was always asking, what is the next step? And for my opinion, the next steps beyond mathematics is computer science. Okay. Before physics comes.
Okay, let's put it in different way. So Maharaja discovered that Veda and Vedic literature and the human physiology, and that's the reason why human beings are the ones who are able to experience the highest state, like experiencing Brahman consciousness. And then he went forth with studying the Ramayana, but at some point he started to look into mathematics. Huh? You think there's some reason why he chose mathematics?
Yes. I mean, it's mainstream. The science, the research on consciousness is absolutely fashion today. It means every science is trying to explain what consciousness is. It's one of the two most interesting questions in all the sciences. What is consciousness? And it's interesting to see in the internet, if you Google, what sciences from different areas are finding. And the domain of consciousness in sciences was always neurophysiology, but it is expanded to all other sciences, and now they do the same as they did before. They're referring to mathematics and also computer science to explain what consciousness is. Now, they also use axioms, sometimes the axiom system, very formal. If you have axiom systems and can derive it, it looks very scientific. Now, if you have still 3 minutes, I'm happy to offer a complete set of axioms for consciousness science. I haven't found it somewhere else, and it's easy to understand for you. No, if you have a mathematical formula, say, for example, the binomial equation a plus b in parentheses squared equals a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. However, if you have any formula, you can exchange the names of the variables with completely. You can say, instead of a plus b, you can say C plus E, or you can say John plus Mary, whatever you like. You can completely exchange it without changing anything of the whole truth. Now, once I found that the definition of a set, as I mentioned before, is by chance almost completely identical with the definition of consciousness. Have a look at Wikipedia, you can compare. Almost the same. Then I realized, even on the level of science, consciousness and set are completely the same. So my suggestion for a complete, proven, verified, industrial standard set of axioms for science of consciousness is just take the mathematical set theory and replace the word set by consciousness. And then, of course, you have to show that it's useful and makes sense. So then you go into Maharishi's lectures and showing anti-state corresponds to Atman and Brahman corresponds to the line. This is Shabda, verbal testimony by Maharishi, Shabda, so we can accept it and so on. So you are busy, you can do homework over and over again, but this is a complete set of axioms for the new science of consciousness.
Yeah, I think we should do it.
Beautiful.
We should rewrite all books in mathematics. It took 100 years until the discoveries of George Cantor appeared in school.
Yeah.
It's not which everyone likes, set theory, especially the parents and so on. But it took 100 years, and it's full of philosophy. It's so easy to rewrite them in philosophical terms plus mathematical terms. It will be really like a drama. It will be very motivative. So the same must be done for all mathematical books, also for university. Just writing, as Maharishi is showing it, give a lecture in two different meanings. One, it's correct in Vedic terms. At the same time, it's pure mathematics. And the proofs you take from mathematics, we have the rigorous, and the Shabda you take from Maharishi. So you have complete knowledge. This is what complete mathematics will be.
And you also do the same with physics, no? Because it also took 100 years for for quantum mechanics to be in the books. And there's a quote of Maharishi when he said that in the beginning of the 19th century, it was Gurudev who enlivened being in such a way that all this knowledge came out in different fields like physics, mathematics, and biology. And we know that there was really a quantum gap at that time when they were going beyond, they were sort of transcending the objective understanding of science and were jumping to something which is much more. So the physicists in the beginning of the 19th century, they started to read the Upanishads and started to think about what consciousness really is and what matter really is, and I figured out that matter doesn't exist at all. So, and that was the beginning of the 19th century, and now we have to formalize it in a way. so that it's in every textbook in school.
Yes. Maharishi said, I heard Maharishi said, the new age of enlightenment will show up if science is every science discovers consciousness. So we are on the way.
Through the window of science, we see what?
The dawn
The
of
dawn of the age of enlightenment.
So, have we seen that the empty set is only consciousness? Yes? We have seen that.
Every set is a consciousness, and the empty set is the first one.
So then, with Maharaja's paper on consciousness is all there is, can we not say that every set, no matter what it is, shows that actually it's only consciousness?
Yeah. Mathematics is, the sets are, there only is in mathematics. And set corresponds to my consciousness, so the first axiom of Maharaji is well known in mathematics if you replace the word consciousness by set. Mathematics is only the theory of sets. Everything which there is a set.
So, Dr. Stein, does this not mean that your request is already fulfilled? If every set is made of the empty set, and the empty set is Atma, consciousness, then we just have to put that footnote on the first page of the textbook, and then everybody knows, and then you put the phone number of the TM Center.
I mean, no, it's October when the first semester at university starts.
Yeah.
I will distribute pamphlets saying exactly this.
Good.
For easier mathematics, more enjoyable, less costs for home
falling out and starting again.
Nachhilfe. For the teaching in the afternoon, get teachers in the afternoon paid.
Good. Beautiful. So we've solved the problem of modern mathematics, that it is without basis and does not refer to, is not relevant to the student's personal life or to a practical life at all. And because now we know that everything is just consciousness, all the sets, the entire universe of sets have their basis in just pure consciousness, the self. So this is a good starting point for the next lecture which you'll be giving, which will be on the 7 states of consciousness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes?
I like to do it.
Dr. Stein, any other comments before we close?
Yeah, we are really looking forward to. We started with transcending, and we got to Brahman, and now we want to hear more of the details on the 7 states.
Beautiful.
Especially what is the sleep state in the mathematical lecture at university.
That's the happiest point. The most difficult point.
Okay, we'll come to that in the next lecture.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us today, both of you. And we look forward to the next exposition, including the 7 states of consciousness and the sleep state and the dreaming state as well. And all of this is just a celebration of Maharishi's incredible gift of knowledge, total knowledge, which we've seen clearly today. When Maharishi talks about Maharishi Vedic science, he's including mathematics completely. And my experience in agriculture is whenever I read Invincible Defense or Invincible Mathematics, I see agriculture everywhere, and I'm sure Dr. Stein sees physics everywhere. So this is the speech of Maharishi, total speech. All glory to Maharishi Ji, and all our gratitude to Maharaj Adhiraj Rajaram. And we end by ringing the bell of invincibility. Jai Gurudev.
Heaven is descending. descending, descending on the earth. Heaven is descending, descending on